Okay, that's the end of my first subject, the male-female income gap. I'm now going to be a little bit more radical, and I'm going to talk about the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling is much more radical, and then I'm going to get into the racism stuff, which is even more radical than that. So hold on to your hats or your seats or whatever you're supposed to hold on to. Okay, what's going on here? What is a glass ceiling? Well, a glass ceiling is the idea that women can rise, but they sort of get stuck right there. And right there is not the president, it's sort of the vice president, right? They can get up there, but they can't really get up to the male level. There's a glass ceiling keeping them down. When Hillary was running for president, people were talking about the glass ceiling. Although in politics, there was Indira Gandhi, there was Golda Meir, there was Margaret Thatcher, there were a few. But if you look at how many prime ministers or presidents of countries there have been, you can name them on the fingers of one hand. And this is for the last, I don't know, throughout all history. And we've got 200 or 300 countries for many, many years, and you can only name 4 or 5. That's a glass ceiling. So even though a woman sometimes can get up there, we would count that as a glass ceiling. Okay? It doesn't have to be a perfect glass ceiling. By and large, women are prevented from getting to the very tippy top. Now, there are various theories as to why this should be. And the leftist theory, or the feminist theory, or the incorrect theory, is that it's due to the usual standbys, the usual thing, you know, it's a male plot, it's patriarchism or whatever. I want to offer a very different theory. But in order to introduce this theory, I now have to talk about a thing called sociobiology, sometimes called evolutionary psychology by wimps who refuse to call it by its original name because it's politically incorrect, but it means the same thing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sociobiology. What's going on here? Sociobiology is the theory that we are the way we are now because of what it took to survive 1 million years ago when we were in caves or in trees. That's the theory. If something kept us alive as in the trees or in the caves 1 million years ago, then the people who did that could leave progeny, and they're our grandparents, and that's why we are the way we are. Let me give you an example. We are the species that doesn't like babies crying and loves babies smiling. I mean, a lot of advertisements pull at our heartstrings because, you know, you see a baby smiling, you go, oh, isn't that cute? You see a baby crying, you don't really like that. Now, we're not talking about a few sociopaths, but the average person just doesn't like babies crying and loves babies smiling. And isn't that cute? You know, that bit. Well, suppose there were 2 species back then 1 million years ago in the trees or in the caves, and they were exactly alike. Ceteris paribus, other things equal, exactly alike. They had the same opposable thumb, they had the same brain capacity, they had the same speed, they had the same ability to hunt, to evade predators. Everything was the same, except that group didn't give a rat's rear end about babies, and we did. Now, which group is more likely to survive and prosper and continue the gene pool down into the present day? Obviously, this is a no-brainer. If you don't care about babies, if you don't care whether they cry or not, you're not going to take care of them and you're not going to survive. Does everyone see that? Let me give you another one. How many people here are afraid of snakes? What did Indiana Jones do in that movie where they were guarding the treasure? They had snakes all around, right? How many people here are afraid of bathtubs? Nobody. Milton Friedman, by the way, was killed by a bathtub. He was. He was 93 and he slipped in the bathtub and he hit his head on the side of the bathtub, and when they took him to the hospital, he passed away. Bathtubs kill many, 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 many more people nowadays than snakes. And yet we're all afraid of snakes and not bathtubs. Why? According to sociobiology, back then there were no bathtubs, so you weren't selected for fear of bathtubs. It had no survival value. But you were selected for fear of snakes. If you didn't fear snakes, you're not going to leave as many progeny around as people who did fear snakes. That's why we fear snakes. Because our grandparents great-great-great-grandparents to the nth degree. Snake fearing was a survival thing way back then, whereas bathtub fearing wasn't. So we're hardwired to fear snakes, not bathtubs. Now let's talk about Katrina. In the aftermath of Katrina, the prices of flashlight batteries, most of you were there, flashlight batteries, gasoline, water, milk, orange juice, rose through the roof. Rose through the roof. Why? Because, supply shifted to the left and demand, supply shifted to the left. There was very little of it. Prices rose. Governor Blanco said, this is price gouging, and we're going to put the price gougers in jail, and everyone was applauding. Yay, yay, put them in jail. Why is this? You see, we as economics students all know that what the function of a higher price is like a call for help in the wilderness. When the price rises, there are two motives that people have to come and ship things toward New Orleans. One is benevolence, but you can only rely on benevolence so far. Benevolence is limited. The other one is self-interest, and Adam Smith had a lot to say about self-interest in The Invisible Hand. Well, a high price means high profits, and people now have not only a benevolent incentive, but a profit incentive to bring stuff from Tennessee and Alaska or wherever it is, Mexico, bring it here to make the profits. And as they bring it here, the price comes down. So what the price is sort of like a signaling device. But we're not hardwired to appreciate that. There was none of this market stuff a million years ago. A million years ago, the only way we could help each other was explicitly. You're sick this week, I'll help you. I'm sick next week, you help me. Right? People who didn't do that didn't get self-selected to live. So we don't need good Samaritan laws. If we see someone drowning or by the road, we help them. The natural inclination is to help, as shown by the fact that there are still people coming down here to New Orleans to help us, volunteers to fix our houses and stuff. We all, except for a few sociopaths, and even the sociopaths, I don't much like Hitler and Stalin. They were bad guys. But the way I sort of come to grips with them is I say, maybe their genes were necessary to keep the human race alive a million years ago, because you need real vicious people to deal with the lions and the tigers then. I don't know if it helps you, but somehow it helps me reconcile the fact that we have mass murderers and rapists and other bad guys out there. Maybe it's socio-biological. They say to understand is to forgive. Well, maybe to understand is to not let it bother us so much that there are bad people out there. I don't know if that helps, and it's a little off the point. Let me get back to sociobiology.